Introducing Korean broadcast content that you won't be able to stop watching. For weary modern souls, Dr. Romantic, the quirky genius doctor of Puldam Hospital, prescribes heartwarming tales of humanity. A couple together for 7 years sees their rose-tinted glasses shatter. Can they keep their relationship alive? Discover the raw stories of youth, work, and love. Beyond what social media can show, experience the vibrant Korea through its hidden gems. Mama, the ultimate K-pop festival for global fans. Find your star in a feast of trendy music and electrifying performances. Now, the whole world enjoys it together.
Samsung Electronics posted a record annual operating profit in 2025, worth approximately $30 billion, an increase of 33% from the year before, amid a global artificial intelligence boom. Meanwhile, SK hynix, which also posted an annual record operating profit yesterday, said it aims to maintain an overwhelming lead in the high-bandwidth memory market. Amid continued pressure from the United States on South Korea to raise tariffs, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warned that there will be no trade deal with Seoul until the National Assembly formally ratifies the trade agreement made in October last year. The U.S. Federal Reserve has decided to hold its key interest rate steady, despite increased pressure from President Donald Trump to cut borrowing costs. The Fed Chair Jerome Powell defended the importance of central bank independence, saying policy decisions will not be guided by political demands. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. South Korea's two largest companies by market cap, Samsung Electronics and SK hynix, both released earnings reports earlier today. The two global chip makers, as expected, saw positive figures with the AI industry's demand for memory chips. We have our Kim Do-yeon on the line with us to tell us more. Do-yeon, let's start with the numbers.
Indeed, the companies posted record figures for both all of 2025 and the fourth quarter on the back of rising HBM4 chip prices. But what caught the industry's attention the most was that for the first time, SK hynix has significantly outperformed Samsung Electronics Semiconductor division in operating profit, driven entirely by its dominance in the AI memory sector. SK hynix posted its highest ever quarterly revenue of 32.83 trillion won, or about $22.9 billion with a record operating profit of 19.17 trillion won. But Samsung Electronics also achieved a milestone of its own. The company reported record consolidated revenue of 93.8 trillion won for the quarter. That's about $65.6 billion. However, if we isolate the device solutions or semiconductor division, the story changes. Samsung's chip division posted an operating profit of 16.4 trillion won. While this is a strong recovery, it trails SK hynix by nearly 3 trillion won, highlighting the massive profitability gap created by SK hynix's early leadership in high bandwidth memory.
Right, and Do-yeon, looking ahead, what are these companies forecasting for 2026? Is the industry expecting this AI supercycle to continue?
Both companies are forecasting this year to be also strong according to their earnings call today. SK hynix forecasts DRAM demand growth to exceed 20% in 2026. They are aggressively defending their lead, having already secured mass production readiness for the next generation HBM4 chips as of last September. Now, Samsung Electronics is taking a similar stance, projecting that AI applications will continue to drive the overall market. They plan to begin mass production of HBM4 in 2026 to recapture market share. However, Samsung did sound a note of caution regarding the mobile and PC sectors, warning that rising memory component costs could potentially dampen shipment volumes for finished devices. Ultimately, 2026 is shaping up to be a race for the premium AI memory market, which remains the decisive factor for profitability. That's all for now. I'll be back with more for our later newscast.
All right, Do-yeon, thank you for the update. Now, South Korea continues to face renewed trade pressure from the United States as U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent links progress on a trade deal to parliamentary approval in Seoul. Our Moon Hye-ryun reports.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has made clear that there will be no trade deal with South Korea until the National Assembly formally ratifies it, reinforcing pressure from the Trump administration over stalled legislative approval in Seoul. In an interview with CNBC on Wednesday, Bessent said the South Korean parliament has not passed the trade deal, so there is no trade deal until they ratify it, adding that it would be helpful if things moved along. His remarks refer to South Korea's pending special law on U.S.-bound investment, which Washington sees as a key condition for finalizing the agreement. The comments follow President Donald Trump's warning this week that tariffs on South Korean goods could rise from 15% to 25%, citing the National Assembly's failure to legislate what he called a great deal. Trump later signaled some flexibility, saying the two sides would work something out, raising the possibility that the tariff hike could be delayed or suspended. The Blue House says Washington's frustration is focused squarely on legislative delays, not on Seoul's willingness to honor its commitments. Policy Chief Kim Yong-bum told reporters the U.S. understands that investment projects cannot begin until the special law is passed, but believes the process has moved more slowly than expected. Kim said the government will press lawmakers to accelerate the bill in February, while also explaining to Washington that Seoul is taking steps to prevent further delays. He added that officials are exploring ways to conduct preliminary reviews of investment projects so implementation can begin immediately once the law is approved. Diplomatic channels are also intensifying, with Industry Minister Kim Jong-kwan traveling to Washington to meet U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and other senior officials to clarify South Korea's position. For now, both sides appear to be keeping negotiations open. Moon Hye-ryun, Arirang News.
And the U.S. Federal Reserve held interest rates steady, resisting renewed pressure from President Donald Trump to cut borrowing costs. Fed Chair Jerome Powell said inflation remains elevated and policy decisions will continue to be guided by economic data, not political demands. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
The U.S. Federal Reserve has kept its benchmark interest rate unchanged, pushing back against continued pressure from President Donald Trump to cut borrowing costs and underscoring the central bank's independence. At the conclusion of its two-day Federal Open Market Committee meeting on Wednesday, the Fed voted to maintain its policy rate in the 3.5 to 3.75% range. The decision follows 3 consecutive rate cuts since September. The rate freeze means the interest rate gap between South Korea and the higher end of the U.S. rates is 1.25 percentage points. 10 of the Fed's 12 voting members, including Chairman Jerome Powell, supported the decision to pause the cuts. 2 officials, Stephen Moran and Christopher Waller, dissented, calling instead for a quarter percentage point rate cut. Speaking at a press conference, Powell said the current policy stance remains appropriate.
In support of our goals, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to leave our policy rate unchanged. Having lowered our policy rate by 75 basis points over the course of our previous 3 meetings, we see the current stance of monetary policy as appropriate to promote progress toward both our maximum employment and 2% inflation goals.
The decision comes amid heightened political pressure on the central bank. Powell recently disclosed that he is under investigation related to his congressional testimony last year and the Fed's building renovation project. He has suggested the scrutiny reflects tensions stemming from the Fed's refusal to set interest rates based on political preferences. While declining to address politically charged questions directly, Powell stressed the importance of central bank independence, reaffirming that monetary policy decisions are driven by economic data and long-term stability rather than external pressure. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
As part of a special coverage on how Korea-France relations have evolved over the past 140 years, our Oh Soo-young shows us how young Korean firms are making their way into French business circles through innovation and systematic support.
Korean fashion in Paris is gaining ground not just on the runways, but as a booming business for a Korean startup in France. This shop, by a platform company called Slog, in the artsy neighborhood of Le Marais, landed on the Parisian hipsters map last year.
Slork is a platform that helps competitive Korean products enter France and global markets. From my experience living overseas, Korean products are highly competitive and have strong appeal in France and other markets, but many brands hesitate when it comes to global expansion.
Through a successful series of pop-up stores, the company's CEO saw rave reactions from French shoppers, learning on the ground in order to distinguish what sells from what is simply trending.
What we found is that there is strong preference for everyday casual clothing seen in Korean films and dramas, but clothes that ordinary people can actually wear.
Building the business wasn't easy for La. Initially, without staff or infrastructure, the founders struggled with language and regulatory barriers. Systematic support was crucial.
The managers and director at the Korea Startup Center actively supported us, from interpretation and translation to document review, paperwork, and explaining exactly where and how documents must be submitted.
Run by Korea's SMEs and Startups Agency, the K Startup Center in Paris is uniquely based inside Station F, the world's largest startup campus. Korea being the first and only country to maintain a permanent presence at Station F, some 18 Korean startups can benefit from the largest innovation ecosystem in Europe. Tenant companies range from consumer goods to digital platforms and advanced technology.
We focus on firms that are less than 7 years old, or up to 10 years in the case of new industries. To apply, companies need either investment records or export experience to France or nearby European countries. We also look closely at how prepared they are for the local market and, importantly, the founder's experience, since startups often operate with very small teams.
The centre offers early-stage settlement support, including visas, regulatory consultations, mentoring, workspace and networking opportunities.
One strength I see in Korean startups is execution speed and adaptability. They tend to pivot quickly, respond fast to customers, and adjust their business models. Also, growing interest in K-culture, K-beauty, K-food, and Korean culture more broadly. This kind of soft power can have a positive impact on Korean startups.
As Korea and France mark the 140th anniversary of diplomatic ties, Yang says she hopes to further help Korean companies build longer-term operations in Europe and also connect startups based in Paris with programs and partners in Korea. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Paris.
The South Korean Air Force Black Eagles aerobatic team refueled at Japan's Naha Air Base in Okinawa on Wednesday, marking the first time Japan has provided refueling support to a Korean military aircraft. Japanese media reported the team departed Wonju Air Base and landed in Naha at around 10 a.m. Japan's State Minister of Defense Masahisa Miyazaki said the stopover was symbolically significant and highlighted the importance of defense cooperation amid growing regional security concerns. The refueling followed a phone call between the two countries' defense ministers on December 26th and a formal request for airspace access and support sent on January 5th. And South Korean actress Bae Doo-na has been appointed to the jury of the 76th Berlin International Film Festival. According to the festival's organizers on Wednesday, Bae will serve on the main competition international jury, which selects winners, including the Golden Bear for Best Film, along with several Silver Bear prizes. Officials described her as one of South Korea's most celebrated actors. Bae now joins Lee Young-ae in 2006 and director Bong Joon-ho in 2015 as the latest South Korean movie industry figure to join the Berlin jury. The jury is chaired by German director Wim Wenders and includes filmmakers from around the world. In a world of fast, modernized food, Korean temple cuisine takes a slower path. And Buddhist monk Venerable Sunjae of Netflix Culinary Class Wars shares a philosophy where food becomes medicine. Our culture correspondent Park Geon-woo met her to learn more.
Venerable Sunjae, a Buddhist monk and contestant on the global Netflix hit Culinary Class Wars, says temple food healed the liver disease that had pushed her to the brink of death.
Temple food traditionally excludes ingredients like garlic and focuses on balance to promote long and healthy lives. This wisdom resonates with people overseas, making it appealing to global tastes.
When preparing side dishes, homegrown ingredients that have endured harsh weather and intentionally limited watering are chosen, believing they hold richer nutrients. From fresh fruit to Napa cabbage, zucchini and winter spinach, every ingredient is treated with gratitude and nothing is wasted.
You shouldn't throw away even a single leaf. Someone who doesn't understand the value of agriculture cannot truly be a practitioner.
As much as possible is kept, and even the water to blanch vegetables is reused, believing every part carries life.
People who cook are doctors, and that's why cooking is difficult. They must save not only the human body, but the life of nature as well, because we live only when nature lives.
Scooping out zucchinis with a spoon, a method she says helps braise them more evenly, was another small but meaningful lesson. What's served up are stir-fried walnuts glazed with traditional Korean syrup, tofu braised in soy sauce aged for over 6 decades, white kimchi made from homegrown cabbage, and many more. Now it's time to eat, but with rituals. Beginning with the sound of Sunjae's traditional Korean Buddhist wooden clapper, bowls are cleansed with water, and only as much food as can be eaten should be taken, as leaving leftovers is strictly avoided. The meal can take over an hour as you keep praying to appreciate the food served on the table.
I offer a prayer of gratitude to my ancestors, to everyone whose efforts brought this food to me, and to the lives of nature. A cabbage does not grow on its own. It holds the soil, water, wind, and sunlight within it. Through that gratitude, I reflect inward on all the connections that made my life possible.
말씀하신 것처럼 여러 가지 한식의 어떤 지혜 같은 게 많이 담겨져 있고 그 세계로 뻗어나가는 데 있어서 그럼 스님의 역할은 앞으로 어떤 게 있다고 보십니까?
Though our ancestors didn't use scientific or medical terms and spoke in symbolic ways, that doesn't mean their wisdom should be ignored. Korean food has long been made with the mindset of medicine. I hope this wisdom is preserved, understood, and shared without losing its roots.
And through food, a universal language, Venerable Sunjae emphasizes the importance of living in peace, not only with one another, but with all forms of life, including the earth, water, wind, and sunlight. 박건우, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday warned Iran to accept a nuclear deal or face a far more devastating U.S. attack as American warships moved closer to the country. Trump said a U.S. naval force led by the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln is approaching Iran, calling it an armada, and said time is running out for Tehran to negotiate a deal that would prevent it from developing nuclear weapons. Trump said his previous warning to Iran was followed by military strikes last June and warned that the next attack would be, quote, far worse. Iran responded by saying any U.S. military action would trigger Iranian strikes against the United States, Israel, and their supporters. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Iran's armed forces are ready to immediately respond to any aggression, while adding Tehran remains open to a fair nuclear deal that guarantees no nuclear weapons. In India, a charter plane crash on Wednesday killed Ajit Pawar, the Deputy Chief Minister of India's Maharashtra state. The Learjet 45 went down in an open field near the city of Baramati while attempting an emergency landing. It burst into flames, killing Pawar, 2 staff members, and 2 crew. Witnesses at the scene reported a series of explosions that prevented rescuers from approaching the burning wreckage. Pawar was traveling from Mumbai to campaign for local elections when the disaster occurred. U.S. multinational tech firm Amazon announced job cuts on Wednesday, affecting 16,000 corporate employees in a massive restructuring move to replace human workers with generative artificial intelligence. The second round of layoffs in just 3 months brings the total number of corporate job cuts to 30,000. Senior Vice President Beth Gillatty said Amazon is reducing management layers, increasing ownership, and removing bureaucracy across the company. The company did not say which teams or locations will be affected, but the latest cut is to affect nearly 10% of Amazon's corporate workforce. Amazon said U.S.-based employees will have 90 days to seek internal roles, and those who do not transition will receive severance pay, health insurance, and job placement support. Scientists say that the world is closer than ever to destruction. The bulletin of the atomic scientists on Tuesday moved the doomsday clock to 85 seconds to midnight. Scientists advanced the clock by 4 seconds this year to the closest to midnight it has ever been set. They cited the catastrophic risks of unregulated artificial intelligence and the collapse of international nuclear cooperation. The 2026 assessment highlights that the combination of AI-driven warfare and intensifying global conflicts has pushed the world into its most dangerous state since the doomsday clock's creation in 1947. 주지현, 아리랑 뉴스.
I'm sure I'm not the only one who's feeling worn out by this prolonged cold spell. Layering up every morning, pulling on those long, bulky, padded jackets and hunching our shoulders against the cold wind, it all adds up. And the bitter cold is sticking around longer than expected, with cold wave alerts being in place across much of central parts of Korea. Then tomorrow morning will be the coldest of this week, with Seoul falling to minus 12 degrees Celsius. But starting Saturday afternoon, we'll finally see a gradual warm-up as daytime highs begin to climb. But at the same time, dry conditions are intensifying day by day. Dry weather alerts have been expanded further, with vegetation extremely dry. Even small sparks can spread quickly, so extra caution is essential. And this afternoon, highs will reach minus 1 degree here in the capital. Daegu, Gyeongju both topping out at 4 degrees under sunny skies. Please stay warm and stay alert to fire safety.
Now that's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.
To set the facts straight. Get Korea right.
안녕하세요. 저는 방크에서 활동하는 홍단비 청년연구원입니다. 대한민국이라는 국가가 존재한다는 사실을 전 세계에 알리는 공식적인 징표이자 국민을 하나로 통합하게 하는 힘을 가진 이것. 바로 태극기인데요. 일제강점기 당시 태극기